Hi everyone, Aiden here with Etrailer. Today we're going to be taking a look at and be showing you how to install the Redarc Tow Pro Liberty brake controller on our 2018 Toyota Highlander. So this is going to be a proportional brake controller capable of towing a trailer or applying brakes on 1 to 2 axles. This is going to be one of the most low profile systems out there because the only thing you see is this dial. You've got a manual override here that you can push the button in to apply the brakes, or if you lightly touch the brakes in your Highlander, it'll lightly apply the brakes in your trailer, and vice versa if you slam on them, and it's going to pretty heavily apply them on your trailer. That's what makes this proportional. You can adjust the power levels and the sensitivity here by turning the dial. It's going to be pretty intuitive, but we're just going to have it set right in the middle of the road there, and our neighbor can decide if this works for them or if they need a little more or less. This is compatible with electric or electric over hydraulic brakes. And one of the things you probably noticed when we were close up on the dial there is the installation looks really nice on our Highlander, specifically because with this year make model, you can have these plastic dummy panels that you can pull out, and there's actually a kit that Redarc offers that you can find here at Etrailer to basically make this a no-drill installation. It just replaces one of those dummy plugs. I would strongly recommend taking that route because 1, it means you're not drilling into your dash, but 2, you're taking advantage of something you already have, and it's going to look really good too. The thing you're probably wondering now is how does it install? Overall, it's not too bad. I'd say the biggest problem on the Highlander is space. A lot of things are pretty cramped, and it's just going to be hard to get in there, but we'll walk you through the process of how to get it installed and show you the paths we took so you can hopefully have an easier time doing it at home. Before you carry on with your brake controller install, there's a few pieces you're going to need, such as 4-pole trailer wiring and this universal installation kit that basically takes this 4-pole and turns it into a 7-pole so we can get those brake functions. So I've already gone ahead and installed the 4-pole wiring, and we've got the 7-pole just physically mounted using a no-drill long bracket. You can pick those up at Etrailer if you need, but it's a good way to get this wrapped around the hitch mounted securely. First thing we're going to do though is just connect the end of our 4-pole into the 4-pole end on that installation kit. And I left all of this excess slack out during the installation of the wiring because we can just pull it all the way back up into the vehicle and tuck it up there nice and neat. I'm going to snip these dust covers off though and put a zip tie around the connectors to make it more secure. So this piece here is just so we have lighting functions. If you just had the 4-pole connector on the back of your vehicle, that's all it would give you: turn signals, running lights, and brake lights. But this is just going to be a pass-through, so when we plug in our 7-pole, we're still getting those lighting functions from that 4-pole. Now the other wires in our kit here, the black wire is going to be our power wire, and the blue wire is going to be for our brake output. We're going to extend these wires using the duplex wire that's included in our kit and run it up to the front. We'll do that later though. The other things we can look at right now pretty easily are our white ground wire, which we can ground using the included self-tapper to this steel brace just above our hitch. It's just acting as a support for our crash bar. And then this yellow wire is for our reverse light circuit. That's not going to be used for this application, so we're just going to tuck that up and wrap some electrical tape around it so it's out of the way. I've stripped back a little bit of the sheathing around our duplex wire here. I'm going to strip the ends of each of these wires back and extend the black and the blue wire. We'll do black to black so it's a lot easier to remember, and the blue will go to the white one. So we'll just need to remember that as we take this up to the front that the blue wire is now white. Now I'm just going to strip those ends back, and while the kit does include some butt connectors, I'm going to actually swap them out for heat shrink. So I'll crimp the heat shrink onto here, cut the other butt connectors off, and attach the heat shrink there. So we'll just twist the end of that wire, add our butt connector over the top of that, and crimp that connection down. And once we do crimp it, just give it a tug to make sure it's secure and we made a good connection. And we'll just repeat that process for the other wire and for the other ends up here. If you opted for heat shrink like we did, just use a heat gun or something to shrink them down before we continue. And once we're done with this, we'll route this wire up to the front, and I'll show you the path that we took after we've taken it. Just be sure to avoid any hot or moving parts. You can really go any route with it, but like I said, we'll show you the path we took. So we routed our duplex wire right up here by our hitch. There's this plastic panel. You can see it right here, and it passes through and comes out the top over here. We kept things pretty high and followed some factory lines over all of this suspension stuff, so it's out of the way of those moving parts. And from here, you can see a little bit of that right back here by our fuel tank. And it just continues to follow some factory lines down the left side of the vehicle, zip tying where needed, and going up into this panel here. Once under that panel, we go forward for a little bit and actually cut across right around here, a little bit further back. But we've got some moving parts in our exhaust here that we want to avoid, so we just keep things nice and high, following this factory line over to the passenger side, where it continues to pass underneath this panel here, all the way up to the front where it pokes out right here and goes up and into the engine bay, avoiding all the suspension components that are there. Then coming up into the engine bay, we popped up on that passenger side and we actually split our duplex wire off. Remember, that white wire is going to go to our brake controller. There's a grommet on the passenger side, which is why we came up over here. And that black wire is going to be the power. Now, the other thing I did is I pulled this carpeting material back. Really, this was just mounted up right here with a few hand knobs that I just pulled down. And that black power wire is going to get just tucked up behind there and run over to our battery on the driver's side. Now, the other thing we're going to need is circuit breakers. We're going to have a 40 amp for that black power wire coming from our 7-way, and then we're going to have a 30 amp as per the brake controller's instructions for the power coming from that brake controller. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mount them side by side, sharing that one mounting location, and they're going to go right up here, pretty high up, right where that black power wire is coming out after that carpeted material. My hands are probably going to be all up in the way right here, but I'll get these started and you can see how it's mounted up after. So you've got your 40 amp that we mounted up to the left, and our 30 amp is to the right. Just make sure you keep the two straight so you know which one is going to where. And that copper post is going to be the battery side. So we'll take this power wire, put a ring terminal on it, and get that mounted to the aux side, and then take another lead from the battery side and bring it down to the positive terminal on our battery. So just like the butt connectors, these are going to get stripped back. We're going to twist the ends of those wires, add on one of the included ring terminals in the kit, and we can crimp down that connector. Making sure we test that connection to be sure it's not coming loose, and we'll attach it to that post for the auxiliary side. We just did the same thing for the battery side with the remaining wire attached to the larger ring terminal, and we've got it measured out so that it'll go to that positive post and have a bit of slack. I'm going to attach that to the battery very last though. We can carry on with the rest of the install now. Now this will be pretty hard to see, both of us in here, my cameraman and I, but right around this area there's going to be a grommet. This is the passenger side floorboard. So it's right up there. I'm looking through my cameraman's screen right now. But you want to just cut the end of that grommet out, carefully poke through with something like a screwdriver or a pick tool, and probably have someone on the other side to make sure that you're not going to be poking into any wires. But we're going to take this piece of airline tubing. I've cut a small angle on it so it can poke through that grommet a bit easier, and we'll use it to pull some wires through into the cabin of the vehicle. And here's where our airline tube that we pushed through that grommet popped out. You can see it right down there, just underneath that wire loom there. And I've already gone ahead and taped my wires to it. So this white one is for that brake output. That's the one that's connected to the blue by our 7-pole. And then I went ahead and grabbed a second set of this duplex wire because we did run out. That's going to be the power and ground for the actual brake controller. That is also going to need to go in, and the other ends will stay out here to connect to that power and ground. We're also going to spray this down at some of these connection points where it's a bit thicker because it was pretty stiff going through the grommet, so this is just going to act as a bit of lubrication to help us get through a bit easier. So with all wires pulled inside the vehicle, I'm going to get finished up in the engine bay. Really the only thing we need to do now is take this duplex wire, follow it along that same path that we took with our black power wire from earlier, and I'll be able to put this carpet material back up once it's routed. And the black wire from this duplex will go to the 30 amp circuit breaker. The white wire will just go straight to the negative terminal on our battery. Moving to inside the vehicle, we need to get our wires from the passenger side to the driver's side, which is going to be pretty straightforward. Our center console here is going to have a plastic panel with a push pin right where my thumb is. I just popped that out and on both sides and just fed a pole wire from the driver's side over here, and it's popping out right here. I've just taped all of my wires to that, and we're going to pull it from the driver's side through that center console and out where we can actually start hooking things up. So we're just going to pull all the slack over, and we can clean up the route that these wires are taking afterwards. For our installation, we're going to be replacing one of these knockout panels and adding the, let me grab it, switch holder right here. It's basically going to just plug into that slot so we don't have to drill any holes in our vehicle. And if you get a pick tool in the top middle and the bottom middle, there's going to be some clips to release that. And this one will just slot in place right there. We're going to hold off on that for now until we can get the brake controller hooked up on the other side. We can take the wire for the brake controller. This will plug into the control box, and the other end will plug into the dial. So the right angle end is the one we're feeding in. So we've got that slot that we've popped out. This end will feed in, and I'm just gonna tuck that up and away, grab it through the bottom here after I've fed it through a bit. And eventually we'll assemble everything out here, but I just want to get this fed through first. And we'll just go ahead and plug this in now. So it's a little harder to just fall back through. That'll help keep it out here where I want it to be for now. So for our brake controller, we're going to be using this pigtail that's going to plug into that main control module and have 4 leads. So our black and white wire are going to be power and ground for the brake controller. Black is going to go to black, white is going to go to white on that duplex wire that we fed through. The blue wire is going to connect to that lone white wire. That's the one for our brake signal that's over on that 7-pole that was connected to the blue wire back there. So that's going to go there, and this red wire is for the brake light signal on our vehicle side. We've done some testing and found the right wire, so we're going to get the camera underneath the dash and show you what that wire looks like and splice into that first. So things are pretty tight quarters up there, but the tester right here is hanging off of a green wire. That's the wire that we're going to be splicing into. We've got this carpet pulled back behind a brake pedal, and I want to mock this module box up before I fully connect all my other wires, just to make sure everything will reach. I'm going to tuck that behind this hose right here and zip tie it to there. And then right up where my index finger is, we're going to sneak a self-tapping screw in there to fully secure it and lock it down. Then this carpeting can go back up around it. But After we've got that secured, we can make our other connections. Again, because limited space, we're just going to do that off camera here. So that module box is screwed in and mounted securely right here. All of our remaining wire connections have been made over here. Again, that lone white wire that's connected to the blue wire back by our 7-pole is connected to the blue wire up here. And then the duplex wire, that's our power and ground, black and white respectively, for our brake controller. These wires are going to go behind the gas pedal and get tucked up all underneath this carpet so they're out of the way. Now for our dial, we can turn this all the way to the left. Since we're using this no drill bracket, we can get that lined up with the small hole on top. Right there. We're going to take the included nut in our kit, thread that on. Now this does not need to be tight at all. Really, you can probably get it tight enough by hand. So just make sure to get that snug. And again, make sure this is turned all the way to the left. Get your dial aligned with the 0 up top and push it on. Now when we turn it to the left, we shouldn't be able to go any further past 0. And we turn it all the way to the right, we shouldn't be able to go any further past 10. I'm going to set that right in the middle at 5, push my wire into here and clip this into the slot where we took that dummy plug out. Last thing we need to do is get these ring terminals attached to our battery. We'll do that positive terminal first. And since we've already attached all of our ring terminals, we can just get this nut off, put the ring terminals on, and secure it back down. And finally, we'll do our negative. And I'm just trying to tuck all these wires out of the way, and I made sure to leave myself some slack if we ever needed to gain access here in the future. So now with all that hooked up, we can see that we're getting power to our brake controller here. At this point, this is a self-calibrating system, so you can just drive around as normal. You don't have to hook up to your trailer, and this will calibrate itself. But that'll do it for our look at an installation of the Redarc Tow Pro Liberty brake controller on our 2018 Toyota Highlander. Thanks for watching.